All right, everyone. Your Uncle Ed's back. So today I will be talking about something that is very near and dear to me because those who don't know, I spent 13 years researching the FICO algorithm, which is the FICO score. I was always very fascinated how it was such a kept secret. Nobody could know about it. It was very 1984 Orwellian, right? Back in the day. And in 2001, everything blew up, and the collective people, we the people, found out that there was the existence of this credit score that we were being measured by, but nobody ever told us we were, and nobody showed us. But when they got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, is when you started to see things like myfico.com, which was really just a huge PR ploy because they had been busted. And now they wanted to say that they were educating us with myfico.com. It was just a PR ploy. But today, you know me, I like to be very transparent, very honest, and very just here we are. So we are unfiltered today, and I have the great Sarah Perkins of Bluewater Credit, who is a credit expert, and we're going to chop it up a little bit about credit because guess what? You should not be a victim ever. You're a victor, and don't let anybody tell you, right? And you should not be living with bad credit, and you should not be using your cousin Vinny's credit because you have bad credit. No, let's empower you. Let's get you back on track so that you can live out all the opportunities of the reason why this country is such a wonderful and amazing country because we are the headquarters to the world of opportunity. So let's dive right in. Sarah Perkins, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much. She's a little bit more demure than me, just a little bit. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit today. Tell me about your background and how did you get into credit? Because that's not something that you go to college for, is it? Is there a degree?
No, actually, my degree was in criminal justice, so nowhere
Wow.
near credit. But my first job out of college was a title called Skip Tracer, and I worked for a collection company.
Yep.
So I was a so-called investigator. So I felt like I was using my criminal justice degree, but I worked my way up and ran basically an investigation department for a collection company for about 10 years. So it helped me really learn the ins and outs of bad credit, credit cards, the legal process. I mean, our agency, we were what was considered a debt buyer. So we purchased debt from banks like Chase, Bank of America, all the big names, bought them for pennies on the dollar, turned around, tried to collect on them, sued people, garnished wages, all the above. So I really got a good, like I said, understanding of credit. And then after doing that for 10 years, I jumped ship and went over to, I guess, the other side, which was debt management. I worked for a debt settlement company where I help people negotiate their credit card debts that they are delinquent on and pay, fractions of what they owed. And, did that for like the last 10 years. And then in the last 5 or so years, I partnered with Bluewater Credit, doing more credit education, debt negotiation still, in your traditional credit repair and helping people, yeah, understand credit, how to fix it, mistakes not to make, and kind of demystify it a little bit.
Wow, I didn't realize that you had so much background. That's just really amazing. And the fact that you started out on the debt side, the collection side, really kind of gives you also that human side of it because
Yes,
I've talked to some debt collectors that left that industry because of how inhumane,
it
the
is.
process can be. Not all companies and not all people are created equal, right? But the fact that you have that and you've seen that side and then have gone on both sides, I think it's just a huge plus. Plus the fact that you're an empath, and I know that about you, that you're a person who really does care about people, and I think that that's an important ingredient because credit affects everything. I mean, I've told clients, look, credit in some ways is more important than cash because when
Yeah.
you have great credit, they throw cash at you,
Yes.
but
Yep,
when you
exactly.
don't, you're like on an island somewhere with no chance of being rescued.
Yeah.
And so tell us today, 2023, is this a problem? Do people in mass have credit issues? And if so, what are some of the areas that you're seeing people struggle with credit? Is it just late payments? Because I know we have over $1 trillion of credit card debt. So
Yeah.
people are living off of credit cards. We know that's coming. So guess what? most likely we're going to start to see defaults, right? Because at some point you're going to hit that limit.
Yep, absolutely. No, I mean, it's still a huge thing. Like you said, it's something that they don't really teach us in school, unfortunately. I was one of those people that in college I got enticed by the table out there that says, come get this credit card, you'll get this free towel. And I'm like, hey, free gifts. I'll just sign up for credit cards, use them, spend beyond my means, and even went through a bankruptcy myself in my early 20s because I just did not understand how credit worked. And I think that's how a lot of people are. So either you are knowledgeable about it, maybe your parents, taught you, but I think most of us just go into it kind of clueless and happen to either fall into good credit or bad credit until we actually need it. So I think the two major things that we see, which happen to be the two major things of a credit score, are going to be your payment history. So we see people missing payments, in this world of setting everything up on auto pay, everything's kind of just, you think it's all done for you, and then a little hiccup happens. You don't check the auto pay, and next thing you know, you got a 30-day late. You thought it was set up, a card changes. So I think sometimes the invention of making things easier, we out of sight, out of mind, and people just don't realize that they're missing payments, or an annual fee gets hit on a credit card that they didn't know they even had a payment on. So I would say, sometimes that's the problem, or it's the credit utilization. People are just maxed out on their cards because they're living off their cards, especially we saw it on a rise with COVID. People lost their jobs and, really living off of credit cards when, we hit these kind of things in our economy.
Yeah, no, for sure. And how long do you credit late stay on a credit report?
So with anything, it's 7 years, except for bankruptcies. Obviously, it's going to be more impactful on a score at the time that delinquency happens. So the further away that you get from when that delinquency happened, the impact on it is going to be less and less. So something 2 years old is obviously not going to hit as hard as something that just happened 30 days ago. But yeah, 7 years is for any derogatory item that it can legally stay on someone's credit report unless you can prove it's inaccurate, erroneous, or incomplete. And that's what we kind of do in the credit repair world, is kind of dive into those little reporting errors and get them removed that way.
And public records like Chapter 7 bankruptcy and tax liens stay on 10. Is that true?
And I no longer see tax liens and judgments. I think that's something that changed in like the last 10 years or
With
so. It used to be
new
something
law.
that you would see on the credit reports, but mainly the public records you're going to see is, the Chapter 7 and 13 bankruptcies.
And the 13 is 7 from the date of discharge?
I believe it's discharge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And is the 2-year mark, you mentioned something about 2 years, is that kind of where seasoning, or is considered an account considered to be seasoned? So after 2 years, it starts to impact you less. Is it 2 years? Is that when it
It's
starts
somewhere
kind of
about,
getting mature?
usually about 2 years, and we're
Okay.
seeing, they just recently okayed 2 new credit scoring models, FICO 10T and Vantage 4. They put the pause on the lenders being able to use that because I know there's a lot of questions regarding how that's going to actually impact the consumer, but I know their main focus is what's called trending data, and they're
Right.
looking at like a 2-year span. So 24 months, they're looking at the behavior of not just what your credit is today, but really the behavior for the last 2 years. So I think the 2-year mark is usually going to be the most impactful.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So what makes up this credit score? Are there pieces to it? Is it a puzzle that affects your credit scores? How's that work?
Yeah. So, well, I like to tell people that, there's two main scores or scoring models that you'll see out there. When the one I'm going to mainly talk about is FICO. That's used in probably 90-something% of lending decisions. But you also have Vantage. People may not recognize them, but if you have things like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, all those kind of things, they have what's called a Vantage score. They're very similar to what I'm going to talk about with FICO, but they put different weight on the different categories that we look at. So with FICO, number one factor is going to be your payment history. So that's like 35% of your score right there. So either you're going to earn points by being on time, or you're going to lose points by late payments, charge off, collections, bankruptcies. All those things are categorizing your payment history and are considered derogatory items. So one derogatory item can drop your credit score, sometimes even as much as 80 to 100 points. So I tell people the higher your score is, the more it will fall with, one bad account on there. So
It's
yeah,
almost like GPAs. Remember in school,
yeah,
you got that
it
one
is.
C. It's like it took you forever to get back. Like, what happened?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a great analogy and how to think about it. So then as you get more and more C's, like then it's not impacting your GPA as much anymore. It's just that first one really takes you for that big hit. And then at some point, you can't lose any more points. I think it's like 175 max out of, the 550 points out there that you can earn for a credit score is in that payment history like category there. So yeah, that's going to be your number one. Number two is utilization. So that's going to be your balances compared to your credit limits.
Is
So
that 30% still? Is that the ratio?
so 30% is ideally where they like to have it, where you start earning points instead of them really penalizing you. But we do see if you can get it below 10%, there are still more points to gain. So
Okay.
yeah, so there is an advantage to getting it under 10%, but yeah, you start seeing the advantage of utilization at the 30% or below mark.
Okay. And then once you hit, from what I remember, 70% and above, it's just almost like having a late sometimes. It's just the
Yeah.
amount of points it drags out is humongous.
Yeah. And like I said, yeah, because it's 30% of your score there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you have that payment history and utilization, that's 65% of your score right there. So that's over half of your score that are, determined by two factors that unfortunately we have a lot of problems with in our, with this, with people with charging up way too much debt and then not being able to pay it. So,
Yeah.
then the third category is going to be average length that your credit cards are open. So they like to see, a good history of open accounts. Ideally, I think they want to see above 5 or more years when you average how long your accounts have been open. So that's, the people will say, oh, should I close old accounts? Why does it hurt when I open new accounts? And it plays into that factor. So every time you close an old account, you're losing that history of credit. And so now all of a sudden it's going to be determined on your newer accounts. And then the same thing when you open a new account, it's all of a sudden going to slash that old account in half. So keep those old accounts open and, open new accounts sparingly, especially when you are out looking to shop for like a home loan or getting approved something credit wise. You want to be really careful on opening new credit because that average length of your credit history is 15% of your score.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I tell clients, look, do not open any credit unless I bless it. I'm really kind of like your third parent during the mortgage
Yes.
process, right?
Yeah.
Because that credit inquiry, that hard inquiry is going to lower your scores. The other part
Yep.
is do not close out anything because yes, if you've had it for 2 or more years, it's going to lower your score because it's considered to be mature credit.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, you want to utilize them every 6 months, do something with them,
Yep.
get gas, and then pay it off.
Yep.
Keep
That's
it
what I tell people.
fresh.
Yeah, because I tell people in order to have a FICO score, there's a couple different factors. You need to have an account that's been open for at least 6 months. So that's why someone brand new to the credit world, it'll take 6 months to get a credit score,
Yep.
unless you can get added on as like an authorized user and inherit someone's credit. So you have to have that 6 month of history, but you also have to have activity in the last 6 months. So I have a lot of people that will use all their cards and then decide, hey, I'm going to go all cash basis. I don't want to use my cards anymore. They know not to close them, but then they stop using them. And so
That's
if you
right.
don't have some activity in the last 6 months, all of a sudden this 800, 700 score you had can just disappear. So
Love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
put something like Netflix on, something that's a reoccurring cost that you can just pay off each month on one card. And then because the other side of that is that the creditors can end up closing your card too. So then you get a closed card that maybe has been open for a while and then no more credit history. And so, yeah, you want to make sure you're using those cards so they just don't close them on you out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, because if the creditor closes it, it's going to show they're closed by credit grantor. And by the
Yeah.
way, everything on a credit report, folks, is Big Brother watching. That's why there's a little box called DLA's date of last activity. That was the last time
Mhm.
you used it or made a payment, right? If you're on a
Yep.
recurring payment thing, you want to make sure that that's 6 months fresh,
Yep.
for sure, as she said. But, she gave you a little hack too. I don't know if you caught it or not. She says, get on as an authorized user
Yep.
or become a
Yep.
co-borrower. By the way, the number one reason why people tell me, no, I don't want to do that, is because they think that they're going to harm the person giving you the card. They don't even have to give you a card.
Nope,
This
nope.
this isn't a go use their card
Yep,
hack. This is just get on their account.
yeah.
Don't
I
get
did
the
it.
card, right?
Yeah, I did it for a friend's husband. She
Oh,
didn't have any old credit cards. He needed a boost of like 5 or 10 points. So I threw him on a JC Penney's card I had open for 20 years. They sent me the card. I held on to that card.
yeah,
I
of
didn't
course.
I didn't go give it to her husband to go
Of
shopping
course
it all.
not.
And then as soon as they close on the loan, then I can easily remove them as an authorized user. So it can hurt you in that or help you in that aspect, but then you have to be conscious because if that person racks up the debt, has a late payment, then it's also on your credit as
Agreed.
well. So yeah, you
No,
need to be
agreed.
aware of how they're using it.
Well, you've given us a ton of information. Any other hacks that you want to tell everybody that they should be doing with to get really super healthy credit and credit scores?
Yeah, so the last two factors I just wanted to go over is mix of credit. So FICO likes to see just not credit cards. They'd like to see maybe, 1 to 5 credit cards, an installment loan, which can be like a car, student loan, and then a mortgage. So they want to see a healthy mix of different kind of credits and make sure that you're handling those different kind of loan terms, appropriately. And then the last you mentioned were the inquiries or new credit. So that can affect your score anywhere from 1 to 5 points, typically up to like 20 points. So that all in all kind of is, the recipe for the credit score. As far as a hack, I like to tell everybody that I come across that some people don't realize is they'll say, oh, I pay my credit card off each month. Why isn't my score going up? Or am I getting credit for that? What a lot of people don't know is even though you pay your credit card off each month, if you're paying it after that statement date, they've already sent the balance to the credit bureau. So usually the balance that is on your statement is the balance that goes to the bureau. So even though you pay it down to a 0% utilization, if you had it maxed out at that statement balance date, it's going to count it as a maxed out card. So a couple things you can do is you can either make multiple payments throughout the month. So then that by the time it gets to the statement balance, it's maybe not so great, or go on a week before your statement's going to come out and make your payment then. And then maybe try not to use your card that much or within that 10% range
Excellent,
between the time
excellent
you paid off
advice.
and the statement. So a lot of people don't realize that, but that is, kind of an inside
Yeah,
hack.
because it's a snapshot, right? I always say it's
Yeah.
like going to your glamour shot, right? You're going to take a
Yeah.
picture. You better look
Yeah.
good, right? You
Yeah.
better look really good in that moment because once they snap that picture,
Yeah.
look, you can't go back, right? The makeup is
No,
done.
you can't. You got to wait till the
You got
next month,
that
the
was it.
next
You got to
photo
wait a
shoot.
whole month, and then you bring your makeup kit again,
Yeah.
right? Make sure. Well, thank you, Sarah, so much. I know we're gonna do some
Yeah.
more stuff as well. We're gonna do some more hacks, folks, and we're gonna talk a little bit more in depth at a later video. But thank you so much because
Yeah.
that's chock full of video
Yeah.
information. And by the way, the price was
Awesome.
right, wasn't it? It was free, folks, but please
Yep.
take notes, right? Because this is really, really important. On a very serious note, your credit is so important because you can leverage and do what's called OPM, other people's money, and do intelligent leverage. But you have to have really great credit scores in order to get the best terms so that you're not paying up the wazoo, right? For all kinds of credit stuff. So thank you so much. By the way, you can get a hold of her. You see her number right there.
Yep.
She would love a phone call, 916-256-2175. Give her a call if you're having some credit issues or you just have some more credit questions or a scenario. Give her a call. She doesn't bite. She's really wonderful. Give her a call and she would be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you need her services, because she does have great credit repair services, including attorneys, contact her. Do not be a victim of your credit any longer. Go and get it done because tomorrow's coming soon. So use the time wisely. Thanks again. Have a great
You're
day,
welcome.
and I'll see you
All
next
right,
time.
you too.
Be well.